Caring Review Print Speaking to the Blind, celebrating 40 years of audio newspaper production. Welcome to this week's edition of the Glasgow Times podcast, recorded at the Bishop Briggs Media Centre by our amazing volunteers. You can get in touch with us via Facebook, Twitter or Instagram using @QandReview. That is @ CUEANDREVIEW. You can also contact us directly by emailing information@cuenreview.com. That is INFORMATION @CUEANDREVIEW.com, or by calling 0141 772 3976. That's 0141 772 3976.
The Glasgow Times on Thursday the 30th of January 2025. From the news section. Glasgow drug dealer caught with haul of drugs in Preston. This article was written by Ben Waddle and it's being read by me, Corey. A Glasgow drug dealer was caught with a huge haul of cannabis while waiting for a train in England. Chuan Hiao Lin was spotted acting suspiciously by the British Transport Police Country Lines Task Force on September 12, 2024, while waiting for a train service to Glasgow at Preston Railway Station. Cops then approached the 40-year-old, whose behaviour continued to raise suspicion, especially as he attempted to keep the officers away from his large suitcase. Following that, grounds were built to search Lynn and he was detained. During the search of his suitcase, police found cannabis worth up to £225,000, which was stored in vacuum-sealed bags. Lynn of Lindisdale Road in North Glasgow admitted possession with intent to supply, Class B. On Thursday, January 23rd, at Preston Crown Court, he was caged for 6 months. Investigating officer Sergeant Mark Brooks said, "This was a significant arrest and drug seizure by the Country Lines Task Force, and I am pleased that this sentence given. Our teams deploy across the UK to detect and disrupt Country Lines activity. Officers are skilled at noticing behaviours that will make criminals stand out from everyday passengers, and we will ensure that they are brought to justice. If you are using the rail network to transport drugs, we will find you." That article was from the Glasgow Times. It was from the news section. It was written by Ben Waddle and it was read by me, Corey. The Glasgow Times on Thursday the 30th of January 2025. From the news section. M8 at Glasgow Airport restricted due to emergency incident. This article has been written by Ben Waddle and it's being read by me, Corey. Drivers are facing rush hour traffic chaos as the M8 near Glasgow Airport has been left restricted due to an emergency incident. Traffic Scotland has said the motorway's westbound carriageway at Junction 28, Airport Interchange, is currently restricted following a collision. Due to the crash, road users are being urged to approach the area with caution. It is currently unknown if anyone has been injured during the incident. However, we have contacted Police Scotland for comment. There is a tweet from Traffic Scotland that reads, "New 7:46 AM, #M8J28 Glasgow Airport West. The M8 at Junction 28 is currently restricted westbound due to a road traffic accident. Road users are advised to use caution on approach. Further details to follow as we get them." That article was from the Glasgow Times. It was from the news section. It was written by Ben Waddle and it was read by me, Corey. The Glasgow Times on Thursday the 30th of January 2025. From the news section. Plane collides with Army helicopter while landing near Washington. This article has been written by Lolita C. Baldor and Eric Tucker, Associated Press. It's being read by me, Corey. A passenger jet collided on Wednesday with an Army helicopter while landing at Ronald Reagan National Airport near Washington, prompting a large search and rescue operation in the nearby Potomac River. There was no immediate word on casualties, but all takeoffs and landings from the airport near Washington were halted as helicopters from law enforcement agencies across the region flew over the scene in search of survivors. American Airlines confirmed 60 passengers and 4 crew members were aboard the passenger jet. There were multiple fatalities after the mid-air collision, a person familiar with the matter told the Associated Press. The person was not authorised to publicly discuss details of the investigation and spoke to the AP on condition of anonymity. Inflatable rescue boats were launched into the Potomac River from a point near the airport along the George Washington Parkway, just north of the airport. President Donald Trump was briefed, as press secretary said, and Vice President J.D. Vance encouraged followers on the social media platform X to say a prayer for everyone involved. The Federal Aviation Administration said the mid-air collision occurred around 9 p.m. local time when a regional jet that had departed from Wichita, Kansas, crashed into a military Black Hawk helicopter while on approach to an airport runway. The audio from the air traffic control tower around the time of the crash, a controller is heard asking the helicopter, quote, PAT-25, do you have the CRJ in sight, in reference to the passenger aircraft. Tower, did you see that? Another pilot is heard calling seconds after the apparent collision. The tower immediately began diverting other aircraft from Reagan. In a post on social media, American Airlines said it was aware of reports that one of its flights was involved in the incident, and said it would provide more information once available. Video from an observation camera at the nearby Kennedy Center shows 2 sets of lights consistent with the aircraft appearing to join in a fireball. The airport said emergency personnel were responding to an aircraft incident on the airfield. The incident recalled the crash of an Air Florida flight that plummeted into the Potomac on January 13, 1982, that killed 78 people. The crash was attributed to bad weather. No other details were immediately available. That article was from the Glasgow Times. It was from the news section. This article was written by Lolita C. Baldor and Eric Tucker from the Associated Press, and it was read by me, Corey. The Glasgow Times, on Thursday the 30th of January 2025. From the news section. Police update after person hit by vehicle on Glasgow Road. This article has been written by Ben Waddle, and it's being read by me, Corey. The police have issued an update after a person was hit by a vehicle on a major Glasgow road. Officers were called to the city's Clydeside Expressway shortly after 1:30 p.m. on Wednesday, January 29th, following a collision involving a pedestrian and a vehicle. During the incident, we reported how the busy road had been shut in both directions, while emergency crews carried out their work. Meanwhile, Glasgow City Council said the road was closed between Anderston Cross and Finiston Street in the West End. In the latest update on the incident, police have since revealed the road has reopened. It reopened shortly after 7 p.m. However, the condition of those involved in the crash is currently unknown. A spokesperson for Police Scotland said, The Clydeside Expressway has reopened following a crash involving a pedestrian and a vehicle which happened around 1:35 p.m. on Wednesday, January 29th, 2025. That article was from the Glasgow Times. It was from the news section. It was written by Ben Waddle and it was read by me, Corey.
This is from the Glasgow Times on Friday, 31st January 2025, from the news section. Historic Glasgow pub to be demolished after closing down, by Ben Waddle. A long-established Glasgow pub is set to be demolished after it closed down in 2024. Work to destroy the derelict building housing the former Kelvin Dock Bar on Maryhill Road will begin this week. The historic drinking spot is being demolished to make way for new properties in the area. The site, which was acquired by the Maryhill Housing Association in June 2024, will be used for new affordable homes. In May 2024, we reported that the Boozer in the city's north had closed its doors permanently. Before that, the watering hole had shut temporarily for the start of last year. The Kelvin Dock site is located across the road from Loch 22 on the Glasgow Forth and Clyde Canal and diagonally across from the Association's new Lochs View development, which has transformed land that lay derelict for years in the Botany area. The plans are also part of the wider Maryhill Transformational Regeneration Area, or TRA, project. Maryhill is one of 8 TRAs identified for regeneration and development through Transforming Communities Glasgow, a partnership between Glasgow City Council, the Scottish Government and Wheatley Homes, Glasgow. Due to the strong local interest in the bar, MHA said it to have explored options for preserving elements of the original building. However, a structural engineering report recommended the site be demolished to pave way for new homes. Rebecca Wilson, Chief Executive at Maryhill Housing Association, said, "We understand the fondness many locals have for the former Kelvin Dock pub, and it is a shame the pub building will not be retained in some way. However, the new affordable homes planned for this site will play a key role in transforming the area for the local community and future generations to come. Maryhill Housing is delighted to be working in partnership to deliver this project." The site had been home to a licensed premise since 1848. That article was by Ben Waddle. This is from the Glasgow Times on Friday, 31st January 2025, from the news section. How War in America created a famous Glasgow association, by Dr. Irene O'Brien, Glasgow City Archives. In 1775, the war with the American colonies broke out, and much of the source of Glasgow's wealth was closed off. The prosperity of Glasgow, then a town of some 45,000 inhabitants, was much endangered. The trade which had brought affluence to its enterprising citizens and money to the town was lost. This was further exacerbated by the wars with France and the United States, which led to the imposition of heavy war taxes. Extra regulations enforced by the government made home and foreign trade more restrictive. Trade was stagnant, much distress prevailed, and the outlook was gloomy and uncertain. The men who controlled the commercial destinies of Glasgow at that time, realising their individual impotence, resolved to establish an association. Patrick Colquhoun, 1745 to 1820, then Provost of Glasgow, proposed to the commercial communities of Glasgow, Paisley, Port Glasgow and Greenock that they should form themselves into a body to watch over and take charge of matters relating to their common commercial interests, and to be the organ of all communications with His Majesty's government or with the Parliament. On January 1st, 1783, the Chamber held its first meeting in the Town Hall of Glasgow, and Patrick Colquhoun was called to the chair. He remained president until 1785. The merchant Gilbert Hamilton, 1744 to 1808, of Glen Arbuck House near Bowling, was elected secretary. In March 1783, George III granted the Chamber a royal charter. Patrick Colquhoun was a colonial merchant of some importance and was described as a tobacco lord. He spent a period in his youth in Virginia engaged in mercantile pursuits before returning to Glasgow in 1766. In 1782, Provost Patrick Colquhoun acquired the lands of Woodcroft. He renamed it Kelvin Grove. His mansion was built in 1783. This may have been from designs by Robert Adam. The gardens were laid out at the same time. His firm, Colquhoun and Ritchie, were based in Glasgow in the late 1780s and profited from enslaved labour. It imported, amongst other commodities, sugar and tobacco from North Carolina, Virginia, Antigua, Jamaica and Grenada. The firm consigned tobacco across Europe, all of which involved chattel slavery. At its formation, the Chamber had a membership of 216, comprising Glasgow merchants, 130, and manufacturers, 38, Paisley merchants and manufacturers, 23, Kilbarchan manufacturers, 2, Greenock merchants and manufacturers, 16, and Port Glasgow merchants and manufacturers, 7. Its early activities mirrored that of its members, especially its first chairman, Patrick Colquhoun. Trade with America featured strongly in the early period, especially the tobacco trade. The Chamber was actively involved in debating and agitating on the major commercial questions of the late 18th century. This included reform of the Corn Laws and other legal reforms designed to facilitate trade. Questions regarding trade with the newly independent United States of America and the emerging commerce in and manufacture of cotton goods. In 1833, they held a special meeting of the members to consider the question of slave emancipation, coming out against the proposal. In a memorial, they mentioned the extreme hazard of resorting to any steps towards a premature change in the existing relations of the different classes of society towards each other. They emphasised the importance of caution, as a step too far in advance might indefinitely delay the improvement of the slave population, dislocate society in the colonies, and produce a commercial crisis in the UK. In 1833, the Act for the Abolition of Slavery in every part of the British Dominions passed through Parliament and received royal assent. In the 19th century, the Chamber of Commerce archives reflect the fast-changing commercial atmosphere of the time. Questions under discussion move from canal building to railway construction and steamship navigation, and to telegraphic communication in the space of a few years. Other issues of the time included trade with and development of British India trade with China and the promotion of free trade with other countries, especially in Europe. The Chamber was also involved in agitation regarding the commercial and social reforms of the 19th century and cultivated close links with other chambers of commerce, especially in the north of England. That article was an exclusive by Dr. Irene O'Brien, Glasgow City Archives. This is from the Glasgow Times on Friday, 31st January 2025, from the News section. Man shoplifted from Glasgow Fort M&S 4 times. By Esther Tarnay. A man was caught shoplifting from the same M&S on 4 occasions. Scott Finn admitted having stolen from Glasgow Fort supermarket on May 3rd, 21st, 24th and June 1st in 2023. He appeared at Glasgow Sheriff Court last week. Over 1 month, the 38-year-old stole sets of bedding and 2 T-shirts worth £353. He was identified via CCTV and arrested. At his hearing, the Rob Royston resident appeared from custody. His lawyer said he accepts he had committed these offences and he was at liberty at the time. He had a significant problem with street Valium. Since this matter, he received a significant jail sentence, 13 months for assault, 2 domestic matters and a number of shoplifting matters. These offences were committed as part of the same course of criminal conduct. He was shoplifting to fund his addiction. He realises this is not a victimless crime. The solicitor added that this is a significant reduction in offending and that he has stayed away from the use of Valium since. Sheriff Bernard Ablett said, "I appreciate he has reached a turning point in his life, but I wonder if he could prove that to me with a structural deferred sentence. As part of the order, Finn will have to appear in court again in 12 weeks' time." That article was by Esther Tarnay.
Glasgow Times News on Monday the 3rd of February. Billboards appear to signal the start of a major revamp. An article written by Nicole Mitchell. Work has begun on the revamp of George Square as billboards have appeared outlining the planned redevelopment. The exhibition shows images and information about the past, present and future of the square ahead of the extensive refurbishment. The billboards have been placed on coloured fencing with a section of the square laid with sand. We previously reported that work was set to begin in January and hoardings will be erected around the civic square with the 11 statues removed to storage for restoration. The statues set to be removed, restored and then returned to the square are statues of Prince Albert, Robert Peel, Queen Victoria, Thomas Campbell, Sir John Moore, James Watt, Robert Burns, James Oswald, William Ewart Gladstone, Thomas Graham and Field Marshal Lord Clyde. Construction at George Square is expected to be completed by August of next year, while work on surrounding streets should finish by April of 2027. The project will include a water feature, a raised lawn, sheltered seating and feature lighting. There's also set to be informal play areas for children. A further raised lawn area will be created in front of the cenotaph. The council has said that the designs for the eastern part of the square respond to its institutional character and the formality of the city chambers and the cenotaph. At the western end of the square, there'll be an area for cafes to spill out and paved space for events. Statues are expected to be returned to new locations on the finished square from July 2027 onwards. Designs show the Sir Walter Scott Monument and the cenotaph remaining in their current places. Officials have reported that the final design respects the central east-west axis in the square and responds to the non-institutional character of the western end of the square. John McCaslin and partners were awarded the design contract for George Square and the surrounding streets. These include John Street, St Vincent Street and St Vincent Place, West George Street, Hanover Street, Miller Street, North Hanover Street, Dundas Lane and Cochrane Street. An article written by Nicole Mitchell.
This is an article taken from the news pages of the Glasgow Times, published on Monday, the 3rd of February. It's written by Lucy Jackson. Tributes pour in as Slimming World founder, Margaret Miles Bramwell, passes away. The founder of Slimming World has sadly passed away, at the age of 76. Margaret Miles Bramwell OBE founded Slimming World 56 years ago, in 1969. The company confirmed that she passed away on Sunday morning in Mallorca, surrounded by her family. Margaret received her OBE from then Prince Charles in 2009, and was announced as the winner of the National Business Woman of the Year, in 2023. In a statement posted on Margaret's Facebook page, she was described as a guiding star and the beating heart and soul of Slimming World. The statement reads, "It is with deep sadness that we share the news that our beloved founder Margaret Miles Bramwell passed away earlier today, surrounded by her family. As well as being our guiding star, and the beating heart and soul of Slimming World, Margaret will be remembered for being a much-loved mum, grandmother and great-grandmother. Since founding our precious organization 55 years ago, she has loved, nurtured and protected it, along with each and every member, staff member and consultant who's been a part of the Slimming World family. Her determination to help people shed the burden of excess weight without shame or guilt has seen Slimming World grow from a single group in 1969 to the global authority in weight management that it is today. She undoubtedly touched hearts and changed lives for millions of people, and for all of us who knew and loved her. She'll continue to do so for many more years to come. Our thoughts are with Margaret's family. We take comfort, as we're sure they do, in the hope that Margaret is now reunited with her beloved Tony, sailing off into the sunset together." Slimming World Managing Director Lisa Salmon said, "Margaret steered her ship in the way she lived her life, with a generous spirit, passionate conviction, a wicked and rebellious sense of humor, and a fierce belief in doing the right thing. Our job now is to continue to keep her legacy alive, by doing the very same thing." Margaret has taken great care to ensure that plans are in place to keep the company safe and sound, knowing that she might not always be around to steer it, so that the business will continue to operate just as it always has, run by people who care passionately about changing lives. That article was written by Lucy Jackson.
Glasgow Times News on Monday the 3rd of February. Calls for action against a fly-tipping rise in Glasgow. An article written by Morgan Carmichael. A community council is calling for action as levels of fly-tipping continue to rise in the south side of Glasgow. Avril Williamson, the chair of the Ibrox and Cessnock Community Council, told the Glasgow Times that legislation must be changed and fines increased, as she called the environmental crime a sad reflection on our society. It comes after we reported that Ibrox resident Lorraine Hagen hit out at an eyesore fly-tipping site on Contrast Street and Iona Street near her home. The 74-year-old told us it has left her afraid for her grandchildren's health, as she believed it would not be long before rats turned up. We also reported that officials at the GMB Union say that scrapping or massively reducing the current fee of £183 per tonne for a commercial uplift will see a turnaround in the number of fly-tipping incidents across the city. Cleansing convener Chris Mitchell says that he's been speaking to a string of small firms to try and properly understand the reasons behind the explosion in illegal dumping over the past 12 months. Avril confirmed that the problem has been a long-standing issue in the area. She said, "Fly tipping has become such an issue and we have a severe problem with it in this area. It's something that is highlighted all the time in the Govan ward too, and it's a sad reflection on our society." She added, "Fly tipping is the most talked about issue at council meetings, as well as litter. It's constantly on our agenda." Avril believes the rise can be attributed to residents who don't want to pay for uplifts, shops allegedly using local bins or dumping nearby, and companies who charge to take rubbish away but dump it illegally instead. She also said it's because fly tipping habits have changed, with people now dumping more domestic and commercial waste, such as mattresses and washing machines, which is why legislation must change also. She said the legislation which covers fly tipping is quite old, and it's not up to date with the society we live in today. Nowadays, people have large home improvements, so more domestic and commercial waste is being fly tipped. We've had old building materials dumped in our closes too. It's painfully clear that legislation has not caught up with the throwaway society. Avril also said that fines need to be increased significantly to stop people committing the crime. The fixed penalty notice for fly tipping is currently £500, which was increased from £200 in January 2024. Avril said the level of the fine is so low that for most people it's probably cheaper to pay the fine than the fee to use the dump. Also, in my mind, second offenders of fly tipping should be charged more. Councillor Richard Bell, who represents the Govan ward, said that he's spoken with the police about the incident on the Ibrox streets and is encouraging residents to do the same. Councillor Bell said fly tipping is a blight on communities like Govan, but it's also a crime, and sometimes those responsible are involved in organised crime. I spoke to the police about this particular incident, as it's important that we find out who's behind it. I've asked the police to check their CCTV to see if they can identify the culprits, and I've also asked that council officers go through the material which has been dumped to see if we can establish whose rubbish this is, and importantly, who's responsible. If there is evidence, we will provide this to the police. I fully understand the anger and frustration within my ward that there are some that treat our communities as dumping grounds. I would encourage residents to report any incidents of illegal dumping that they witness. But stronger enforcement is necessary to discourage people from fly tipping. The city administration has made the case for stiffer penalties, and incidents like this make clear the need for tougher action. A spokesman for Glasgow City Council said SEPA has access to powers that can ensure that those responsible for this kind of environmental crime face stiffer penalties than we can serve, and we hope that this approach can help deter fly tipping in future. Fly tipping is a blight on communities, and we fully sympathise with residents who are sick of fly tippers treating public spaces with contempt. There is never an excuse for fly tipping, and anyone who drives to a back street to dump waste could easily travel to one of our waste centres instead. Our bulky waste service allows residents to book a collection of a full range of large items, such as beds, mattresses and sofas, for just £5 per item. The incidents at Kintra Street are being dealt with appropriately. A Scottish Government spokesperson said litter and fly tipping are important issues for local people and communities, which is why the Scottish Government has invested more than £21 million to improve waste collection services in Glasgow through the Recycling Improvement Fund. The Scottish Government has more than doubled the fixed penalty notice for fly tipping, and through the Circular Economy Scotland Act, Scottish ministers have power to collect data on fly tipping to better understand the implications of the issue across Scotland. However, it is for local authorities to decide how they tackle fly tipping, and that includes how they resource effective enforcement, which of course is vitally important. An article written by Morgan Carmichael.
This is an article taken from the news pages of the Glasgow Times, published on Monday, the 3rd of February. It's written by Sandia Suresh. How Braille shaped a Glasgow man's life. A Glasgow man has shared his journey with Braille at an event celebrating its 200th anniversary. The Braille and Beyond event, hosted by the Royal National Institute of the Blind, in partnership with Glasgow Libraries, took place at the Mitchell Library on Tuesday. It brought together individuals with sight loss and the wider community to explore the power of Braille. Matthew Clark, an inclusive design consultant with the RNIB, spoke at the event, sharing his journey with Braille and its enduring significance in his life. He was born with Leber's congenital amaurosis, a hereditary condition diagnosed during his 6-month checkup. Mr. Clark said, "I first learned Braille in primary school. I started with basic print and handwriting, but it became clear that Braille was the best path for me. It wasn't really a choice, I could never have seen anything on a blackboard or whiteboard. Braille was comfortable, effective, and empowering." However, Mr. Clark's relationship with Braille faced its own challenges. Among them, included access to Braille as he progressed to higher education. He said, at university, delays in Braille transcription and the struggle to access digitized text discouraged me from relying on it. He, however, found support in Braille classes at the Mitchell Library, where he said the classes reignited his appreciation for Braille's personal and professional benefits. He added, at work, Braille was the most efficient way to take and review notes during conversations with customers and colleagues. Braille allows me to keep my eyes on the people around me while still accessing my notes. It's practical, empowering, and irreplaceable. Without Braille, blind and partially sighted people are robbed of literacy. No one would ask a sighted child to skip learning to read and write. Braille gives us touch with the written word, with one of humanity's greatest achievements, a foundation to our intelligence, individual agency, and liberty. That article was written by Sandhya Suresh.
Glasgow Times, on Monday the 3rd of February. Lifestyle. The Celtic Connections Festival comes to a close. An article written by Lucy Jackson. Glasgow's Celtic Connections Festival has officially come to a close, attracting more than 100,000 visitors. The 32nd year of the festival reached attendances of 110,000 people, with 125 sold-out shows across 18 days. These figures come despite the festival having to reschedule shows for one day, when Storm Éowyn battered the city on January the 24th. The festival managed to match 2023 attendance figures and was on track to beat 2024's figures until the storm hit. Between January the 16th and February the 2nd, around 1,500 musicians and artists spanning 40 nationalities took part in around 300 events across 24 different venues. Meanwhile, a team of 120 volunteers made sure that everything at the festival ran smoothly. The festival, which is delivered by Glasgow Life, has been taking place for the last 3 weeks across the city and saw a mixture of trad, folk, roots and world music performances. Commenting, Donald Shaw, the creative producer at Celtic Connections, said, "As we reach the close of this year's festival, we have to reflect on the countless moments of joy and connectedness that we're so proud to create. I'd like to thank everyone who makes Celtic Connections possible and pay tribute to the resilience of our hard-working team, the brilliance of our artists, the generosity of our audiences and the support of our funders and partners. Although we're bringing our 32nd festival to an end, these last few weeks have been a catalyst for fresh creativity, future collaboration and renewed friendship and community, generating a legacy that stretches far beyond our 18 days. We hope that everyone who came into contact with the festival felt the spirited vitality that lives at its heart. We'll see you next winter." Meanwhile, Culture Secretary Angus Robertson said, "Congratulations to everyone involved in this year's Celtic Connections. It was another fantastic celebration of Scotland's cultural heritage, which brought together world-class talent and showcased our rich musical traditions on a global stage. The festival has once again demonstrated the unifying power of live music, the vibrancy of our creative sector, and reaffirmed Scotland's status as the perfect stage for unforgettable cultural events. Well done to the organisers, artists and audiences who all contribute to make Celtic Connections such a resounding success every year." The next Celtic Connections Festival will take place between the 15th of January and the 1st of February next year. An article written by Lucy Jackson. Glasgow Times, on Monday the 3rd of February. Lifestyle. Painting appears in Glasgow as locals ask, is this a Banksy? An article written by Rosie Lewis. A mysterious painting has appeared in the West End, prompting some locals to wonder if Banksy has left his mark on the city. The painting, which is at 80 George Street in Hillhead, was first spotted by residents on Friday morning. Resident Tom Watson sent pictures to the Glasgow Times asking, is this a Banksy? The work shows a young boy wielding an axe, looking as though he's damaged the parking sign which stands next to it. There's also a little tyke's cosy coop next to him, with what appears to be parking notices. It's not the first time a piece of art has appeared in the city and left people wondering if the street artist and political activist has been in Glasgow. A painting appeared in Springfield Court in June 2023, depicting a rat donning a sash and Union Jack hat banging a drum that read, "God Save the King." The real name and identity of Banksy remains unconfirmed and is the subject of speculation. An article written by Rosie Lewis. Glasgow Times on Monday the 3rd of February. Opinion: squeezing the UK's welfare spending is not going to help anyone. A column written by Mike Daly. Sweeping cuts to UK welfare benefits have been trailed over the weekend by Liz Kendall MP, the Work and Pension Secretary. Ms Kendall isn't happy with our level of sickness benefits. They're now costing £65 billion per annum. 2.4 million claimants have no conditions to look for work, a 50% increase since 2020. Whether this rise is connected to the longer-term impact of the COVID-19 pandemic is worthy of further study. For example, hospital admissions for young people in England due to mental health increased by 65% in the last decade. The Office for National Statistics notes that the number of people economically inactive because of long-term sickness has risen to over 2.5 million, an increase of 400,000 since the start of the pandemic. Of those economically inactive due to long-term sickness, 38% report having 5 or more health conditions. That's up from 34% in 2019, indicating complex health difficulties. Over 1.35 million of those inactive because of long-term sickness reported that they had depression, bad nerves or anxiety. Something is clearly going on, but simply reducing financial support and suggesting that great swathes of people can be forced into work is a policy that will fail. I remember Labour introducing work capability assessments in October 2008, when the Employment and Support Allowance replaced incapacity benefit. Work capability assessments were further developed by the Tory and Lib Dem coalition government from 2010 onwards. If people are significantly ill, they won't be able to work, and few employers will want to hire workers unable to work. A key driver for welfare cuts is the cross-party House of Lords Economic Affairs Committee. Its inquiry into the relationship between the welfare system and long-term sickness was published 2 weeks ago, and it wants radical reform. It's somewhat ironic that an unelected body of pure patronage talks about radical reform. No work capability assessments for tax-free daily allowances of £360 for peers, plus travel and hotel expenses, in Britain's most comfortable retirement home for unelected politicians. The Lords Committee complains that 3.7 million people of working age receive health-related benefits, 1.2 million more than in February 2020. It contends that if 400,000 people out of work due to ill health were able to find jobs, this could save £10 billion through tax revenue and lower benefit spending. It says that GPs are unable to offer a sick individual the degree of support that they need. The footnote should be overhauled. GPs should be encouraged to refer claimants to occupational health professionals, while individuals signed off work for more than a month should undergo additional assessments. It's pie-in-the-sky stuff. What rankles me is the lack of candour in the true motivation for welfare benefit cuts. The primary purpose is to meet the Treasury's fiscal spending rules and avoid a red card from the Office of Budget Responsibility. The markets responded to Chancellor Rachel Reeves' first budget by having less confidence in UK government gilts. These are IOUs to borrow. The interest on gilts went up, and that wiped billions from her budget. If you want to balance your books and invest more in public services, increase your tax base by growing your economy. The UK government have singularly failed to do that. The ongoing denial of the trading disaster that Brexit has become is the albatross around Labour's economic policies. A column written by Mike Daly. Glasgow Times News on Monday the 3rd of February. Pipe repairs go on after a major burst over the weekend. An article written by Lucy Jackson. Scottish Water has issued an update after a water main burst on a busy Southside road. A 27-inch pipe burst on Pollokshaws Road at around 4:30 p.m. on Saturday afternoon, spilling thousands of gallons of water into the streets. Engineers have worked through the night and all day on Sunday to resolve the issue, with residents in the G41, G42, G43 and G44 postcodes said to be facing an interruption to their water supply. Businesses have been impacted by flooding and a lack of water supply, while shops appeared to run out of bottled water. Scottish Water initially said that it expected repair work to be completed by 10 a.m. yesterday. However, as of 6 p.m. yesterday, the utility company said that work was still being carried out and was expected to be completed at around 9 p.m. Scottish Water announced that its teams have experienced further complications when excavating the main, leading to further delays. A statement on the company's website reads, "Emergency teams have been working through the night and estimate to have the repairs complete by around 9 p.m. this evening. Unfortunately, this timescale has been extended due to further complications when excavating the main and regarding the repair. Complex valve operations have been completed to reroute water through different parts of our network and bring the majority of customers back onto supply, although this may be at a reduced pressure. Further network adjustments are being carried out to increase this pressure and restore normal water supplies. Customers who requested bottled water will be contacted to ensure that their supplies have returned to normal." Water supplies have been restored to the vast majority of affected residents. However, some customers remain out of water in Queen's Drive, Nidri Square, Balvicar Street and between 655 and 767 Pollokshaws Road. Scottish Water said that it was currently investigating the incident and would deliver bottled water to all customers in the affected areas. For those who have got access to water, the company said that people may continue to experience low pressure and discoloured water while repairs are underway. If customers experience discoloured water, Scottish Water has advised people to run their cold kitchen tap at half pressure until the water runs clear. A road closure is currently in place around the site of the burst main, with those planning on travelling asked to allow extra time and to take care. An article written by Lucy Jackson. Glasgow Times News on Monday the 3rd of February. UK households cancel BBC television licences amid price madness. An article written by Matthew Evans. Households in the UK are rushing to cancel BBC television licences and escape a £174 charge under new proposals. According to reports, the government is considering making people pay the television licence fee even if they only use streaming services. The move would be part of the government's plans to change the way the public service broadcaster is funded. Bloomberg was the first publication to break the news. From April 2024, the television licence which is used to fund BBC television services as well as some other public service functions like Welsh channel S4C has been set at £169.50 per year, or about £14 per month on direct debit, and next year it will rise to £174.50. A television licence is a legal requirement if you watch or record television on any channel via any TV service, such as Sky, Virgin, Freeview or Freesat. Watch live content on streaming services such as ITVX, Channel 4, YouTube, Amazon Prime Video, Now or Sky Go, or use BBC iPlayer at all. One person fumed on X, formerly known as Twitter. Why should I have to pay to subscribe on Netflix or Disney or Prime or Now, and then pay for a BBC television licence that I don't use or don't need? That's madness. Another agreed, commenting, sorry, but no. People already pay to use these services. A third added, I will cancel my Netflix account immediately. I don't pay for a licence already, as I don't watch live broadcasts. And another typed, why should I pay a fee to not watch your services when I'm already paying for the subscriptions? An article written by Matthew Evans.
From the Glasgow Times on Tuesday the 4th of February 2025, from the news section. Can I still travel while I'm renewing my passport? And this article was written by Emilia Kettle. If you're planning on travelling abroad, you'll want to check if your passport is valid. Although a little blue book, a passport entitles you to travel around the world and is one of the most important documents to own. When you're booking your next trip abroad and planning all of your adventures, you may get caught up in the excitement of checking your passport renewal date. Not having a valid passport can lead to lots of disappointment and can result in you not being able to enjoy your holiday. However, it's worth checking to see if you can still travel while your passport is being renewed. Can I travel while my passport is being renewed? According to the post office they share, no, you'll need to send in your current passport as part of the renewal process. You won't be able to travel until you receive your new passport. That's why it's so important to check your passport's expiry date and renew it, if needed, ahead of time. That means you will not be able to travel abroad until your passport has been renewed, so it's always important to check your passport before booking your trip away. How long does it take to renew a passport in the UK? If you have recently applied for a new UK passport, you can expect to get it within 3 weeks from when HM Passport Office receive your correct documents. The gov.uk website adds, it may take longer than 3 weeks if we need more information or we need to interview you. We'll tell you this within 3 weeks. There are different turnaround times if you're applying from another country. How do I get a new British passport? If you need to apply for, renew, replace or update your UK passport, you can do this online at www.gov.uk. It currently costs £88.50 to renew an adult passport online and £100 to renew an adult passport by post. Passport application forms should be available from your local post office. However, it's important to note it takes longer to apply by post than online. And that article was by Amelia Kettle. From the Glasgow Times on Tuesday, the 4th of February 2025. From the news section. Hotel bill to house homeless people in Glasgow rockets. And this article was written by Stuart Patterson. Hotel owners have been paid more than £120 million to accommodate homeless people in Glasgow. The use of hotels owned by private companies has rocketed in the last year as the council struggles with the housing emergency in the city, leaving it with no alternative but to find available space. A Freedom of Information request was revealed the council has paid £122,641,880 to private operators in Glasgow in the last 5 years up to January 24 this year. The Glasgow Times obtained a breakdown of the figures showing spending has more than doubled in the last 3 years alone. In 2021-22, the council spent £16,320,680 on hotels and bed and breakfasts. This year, 2024-25, the hotel owners have already been paid £36,122,088. Since the UK Home Office began an accelerated asylum claim system, there has been huge pressure on homeless services in the city. Once someone gets a positive leave to remain decision, they are required to leave their Home Office funded accommodation, and many present to the council as homeless. The streamlined process led to a 96% increase in homelessness applications in Glasgow from households who had been granted leave to remain. Between 2022-23, it jumped from 1,300 applications to 2,600 applications in 2023-24. The council breached its statutory duties under the unsuitable accommodation orders thousands of times last year, and all were in hotels and B&Bs. The Glasgow Times has been running the End the Homeless Hotel Shame campaign to highlight the conditions people are forced to endure. Councillor Alan Casey, City Convener for Homelessness, said, "We're duty-bound to find and provide emergency accommodation to those affected by homelessness. To be able to do this means the council has no option but to use a range of B&B and hotels in the city. It's no secret that we are having to spend more and more on hotel and bed and breakfast use in our attempts to meet increasing demand and avoid people having to sleep rough. There is no alternative. We are in continual dialogue with both governments about these challenges, and we continue to seek the additional resources necessary to address the challenges we are facing." The figure of how much has been paid out overall was requested by the Scottish Tenants Organisation. Sean Clerkin, campaigner coordinator, said, "Glasgow City Council has to use the money they give to these private operators as leverage to impose a strict policy on these private hotel operators to vastly improve conditions in these vile institutions for all homeless people, and then gradually move away from funding these profiteers of human misery, instead to invest the tens of millions of pounds in building good public sector temporary accommodation for homeless people, including halfway single-sex accommodation for women to protect them from predatory sexual attacks and exploitation in these hellhole hotels. Handing over public monies by Glasgow City Council in such large sums to a few private companies without using the money as leverage to improve basic conditions for homeless people is a scandal and completely unacceptable." And this article was by Stuart Patterson. From the Glasgow Times on Tuesday the 4th of February 2025, from the news section. Kirkintilloch man failed to stop at junction and smashed into building. And this article was written by Ava White. A driver failed to stop at a junction before mounting a pavement and smashing into a building. Dean Giffen, 32, of Kirkintilloch, was sentenced at Glasgow Sheriff Court recently after pleading guilty to several charges. He admitted to dangerous driving a car when the proportion of cocaine in his blood was 14 micrograms per litre, the limit is 10 micrograms, and driving a car when the proportion of ketamine in his blood was 62 micrograms per litre, the limit is 20 micrograms. The court heard that at 6:50 a.m. on February the 15th, 2024, Giffen was driving a car on Alloway Drive in Kirkintilloch when he failed to stop at the junction at Langmuir Road. He crossed the carriageway, mounting a pavement and crashing into a building, causing the wall to collapse partially. Police found Giffen standing at the back of the vehicle uninjured. He told officers that he was driving and his foot slipped from the brake to the accelerator, causing him to crash. He said he was unsure how this would have happened and intimated he may have fallen asleep. Giffen was asked to provide a breath sample, which returned a negative result. At 7:40 a.m, a drug swipe test came back positive for cocaine. Giffen was arrested and taken to Glasgow Royal Infirmary as the airbags had gone off in the car. At 10:19 a.m, the drink driving procedure was carried out in hospital, where Giffen provided a sample of blood. This returned a reading of 62 micrograms of ketamine per litre of blood and 14 micrograms of cocaine per litre of blood. He was released into police custody, where he was cautioned and charged and made no reply. In a separate incident on January the 6th, the same year, Giffen was driving a van in Lennoxtown when he collided with a car at 6:35 p.m, causing damage to the passenger door. At 7 p.m, a person was driving in Bencloy Crescent and saw Giffen's van swerve left and right across the road and then crash into a bush. He reversed and continued to drive along the street. The person saw Giffen's van smash into a white van, causing damage to the rear right side light and bumper before driving off again while loudly revving the engine. Another person was driving along Campsie Road when they saw Giffen travelling in front. Giffen cut a corner on a dangerous bend in the road. He veered off the road into a ditch before crashing into a telephone mast and fence. This was seen by another man who stopped to check on him. Giffen was trying to move the van, but a tree stump was lodged underneath, preventing him from doing so. Police were contacted at 7:15 p.m. and traced the vehicle. Giffen was arrested and taken to London Road Police Station, where he was cautioned and charged. Addressing Giffen's lawyer, Sheriff Alan Mackay said, "You have got your work here to keep this man out of prison." His conduct was frankly despicable in light of his responsibilities at the time. The defence solicitor replied, "From the outset he wanted to accept his culpability. Fair to say he has taken significant steps to address the issues. He knows he has a lengthy ban coming his way. He appears to be making genuine efforts and is a man who wants to turn things around." Sheriff Mackay disqualified Giffen from driving for 30 months and fined him £1,040. He was tagged for 6 months, keeping him indoors from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. And that article was written by Ava White. From the Glasgow Times on Tuesday the 4th of February 2025, from the Lifestyle section. What Glasgow gave Diana Ross when US singer dazzled City in the 70s. And this article was written by Anne Fotheringham. On one of her early visits to Glasgow, Diana Ross received a special token of the city's appreciation. The legendary US singer is on her way back to the city on June the 25th as part of her Symphonic Celebration UK tour, where she will be joined by an ensemble of some of the best soul, jazz, rock and pop musicians on the contemporary scene. As part of her Hydro show, Diana will share the stage with the Royal Scottish National Orchestra. She has played Glasgow several times over the decades, including at the SECC in 2007 and back in 1976 in front of a sellout 3,000-strong crowd at the Glasgow Apollo on March the 23rd. Such was the success of that gig, the venue presented her with an Apollo statuette to remember Glasgow by, and the woman who handed it over? It was Glasgow singer Kimberly Clark, who was also performing in the city that week on the bill of the Sydney Divine Show. Later, performing as Kim Clark, she competed in the Song for Europe contest to decide Britain's Eurovision entry in 1979 and again in 1980, narrowly losing out both times. Diana Ross first performed in Glasgow as part of the Supremes. On April the 1st, 1965, they appeared at the Odeon on Renfield Street on a sparkling bill with Martha and the Vandellas, Georgie Fame, Stevie Wonder and the Miracles. And that article was written by Anne Fotheringham.
Evening Times, February 4. Opinion. Martha Wardrop says, action needed to support local council services during climate chaos. Extreme weather events will only become more frequent with the looming climate breakdown. The Met Office's red weather warnings is a rare precaution, but it highlights that climate change is not a distant threat. As the climate crisis worsens, we will face increasing climate chaos, so we must be prepared to protect communities and workers against these extreme weather events. The best thing the UK government can do is take effective action to tackle the climate crisis and reduce emissions. Focusing on fossil fuels has left households with higher bills, a broken energy market, and a bleak outlook for future generations. We urgently need to halt the expansion of oil and gas and make a generation-defining national and global investment in clean, green energy. Leaving fossil fuels in the ground and going green is the only way to secure our future and ensure a livable planet for generations to come. We know that bold action is also required to reduce the number of cars on our roads. A new report from Audit Scotland is warning that the 2030 target for cutting car use is likely to be missed. Part of the challenge is the extortionate cost of public transport. By introducing cheaper bus and train fares, we can encourage people to make the switch to greener alternatives and to leave their car at home. That's what happened when the Scottish Greens secured free bus travel for everyone under 22. If we are able to discourage car use for short journeys, then we can make it easier to be green. That means supporting councils to invest in walking, wheeling and cycling infrastructure and boosting local public transport options. We can all benefit from safer and more accessible streets and cleaner air. We can build on the success of free bus travel for young people in the year ahead. Scottish Greens will support the forthcoming Scottish budget, following confirmation that the Scottish Government have agreed to the party's proposals on record climate and nature restoration funding. Our Green MSPs have secured a year-long regional trial of capping bus fares at £2 starting on the 1st of January 2026. Free bus travel for people seeking asylum and free inter-island ferry travel for young island residents. From schools to libraries to social care to bin collections, our councils deliver the services we all depend on. In the Scottish budget, there is progress on giving councils more direct power through a consultation on devolving parking charge notices. Green MSPs have negotiated progressive taxation to support public services. Our Green MSPs have also pushed for an increased tax on the purchase of second or holiday homes and moving forward with proposals for a cruise ship levy, with the consultation for which will be launched in February. These changes to the Scottish budget, secured by Scottish Green MSPs, will help tackle the climate crisis and protect local services. The provision of revenue-raising powers for councils and more cash coming down the line to directly invest into our public services is vital, says Martha Wardrop.
This is from the Glasgow Times on the 5th of February 2025 from the news section, and the headline reads, "Boy missing after mum dropped him off at school gates." This article was by Kirsty Feerick. A boy has gone missing after his mum dropped him off at the school gates. Caden Thompson's family have been sick with worry as the 15-year-old vanished yesterday. Despite being taken to Glasgow Gaelic High School in the city centre in the morning, he never attended class. His family said that it's completely out of character for the teen to go missing, leaving them frantically searching with the police for him. It was also his twin brother's birthday on the day he vanished, making his disappearance even more unusual and shocking to loved ones. His mother is extremely upset as she looks for answers and just wants her baby back. He was last seen on St Vincent Street at 9:45 a.m. and it is understood he does not have a mobile phone with him. Aunt Jenna Burns told Glasgow Times his mum dropped him off for school at Glasgow Gaelic High School in the city centre. He didn't go into school. He was last seen on St Vincent Street at 9:45 a.m. We have no idea where he is now. He doesn't have his mobile with him. It's completely out of character for him. We're devastated and worried sick. His mum is ill about it. She's sick with worry and just wants her baby back. It was his twin brother's birthday as well yesterday, so totally shocked. We're all absolutely sick with worry. We don't know what to do. Scottish Fire and Rescue Services posted on social media, "Missing person. Have you seen Caden? He has been missing since yesterday morning. He failed to turn up at school. He was last spotted on St Vincent Street around 9:45 a.m. He was wearing a black, shiny Moncler jacket with a Nike tracksuit. It is black and grey like in the picture. Police Scotland have been contacted for comment." This article was by Kirsty Feerick. This is in the Glasgow Times on the 5th of February 2025 from the news section, and the headline reads, "Cost of new Glasgow jail in Glasgow more than doubles." This article was by Stuart Patterson. The new jail to replace Barlinnie has been given the go-ahead with a construction contract of almost £1 billion signed off. HMP Glasgow, to be opened in 2028, will replace the 143-year-old prison in the East End. The jail will have a capacity for 1,344 prisoners. The total project cost is £998.4 million, which includes the cost of land acquisition, VAT, and a construction contract cost of £683.8 million. The project is already late and over budget. Work had been due to start construction in November 2023 and open in late 2026 at a cost of £400 million. The Scottish Government said the prison has been designed to deliver fit-for-purpose, safe and secure accommodation that will improve opportunities for successful rehabilitation to help reduce reoffending while creating a safer working environment for staff. Angela Constance, Justice Secretary, said, "HMP Glasgow is a bold vision for the future of Scottish prisons that will help reduce reoffending, contribute to less crime, while delivering a considerable economic boost for the city and beyond. The new modern establishment will replace a Victorian-age prison that is no longer fit for purpose. It will increase prison capacity and transform how prisoners are rehabilitated, as well as considerably improving staff working conditions." Opposition politicians have slammed the increased cost. Scottish Conservative Justice spokesman Liam Kerr said, "This is a jaw-dropping admission from the SNP Justice Secretary. The SNP are squandering taxpayers' money on a scandalous scale, and the public are going to pay a colossal price for the nationalists' financial incompetence. It is scarcely believable that the costs to replace Barlinnie are now set to hit nearly £1 billion, and that the new prison won't be open for another 3 years. Kier Construction has the contract to build the jail, and during peak construction activity there will be more than 1,000 people on site, with several thousand working on the project over the lifespan. There will be 50 new apprenticeships created within that workforce." Rebecca Boundy, Public Sector Director at Kier Construction, said, "The project will provide new jobs, with at least 50% of project spend committed to local supply chain partners, and also including provision for those who have directly experienced the justice system in the last 6 months." Theresa Medhurst, Chief Executive of the Scottish Prison Service, said, "HMP Glasgow will have a transformative impact in how we support and rehabilitate people. It is an investment in our staff, and those in our care, and in Glasgow and Scotland as a whole, as we work with our partners to improve people's futures and together build safer communities." This article was by Stuart Patterson. This is from the Glasgow Times on the 5th of February 2025 from the news section, and the headline reads, Driver accused of killing man by running him over in Bishopbriggs. This article is by Connor Gordon. A man will stand trial accused of causing the death of a pedestrian by running him over. Martin Hume, 38, allegedly struck John Conway in Bishopbriggs, East Dunbartonshire, on January 20th, 2023. Court papers state Hume was behind the wheel of a Kia Sportage on Auchinlearn Road. It is alleged that he drove without due care or attention, or without reasonable consideration for other people using the road. The charge says Hume of Bishopbriggs failed to maintain proper observations and did not see Mr. Conway. It stated that Mr. Conway was a pedestrian crossing the road at the time. Allegations say Hume emerged from a junction and took a right turn when it was not safe to do so. It stated that the manoeuvre caused Hume's vehicle to collide with Mr. Conway, which caused damage to the car. Mr. Conway died at Glasgow's Queen Elizabeth University Hospital 11 days later from his injuries. Hume pleaded not guilty today at Glasgow Sheriff Court to causing Mr. Conway's death by careless driving. Dominic Seller, defending, told the hearing, "It is accepted that the cause of death is linked to the collision." The lawyer stated that counsel Alan MacLeod has been appointed and the defence is waiting on an expert report. Sheriff Tom Hughes fixed a trial for March this year, which is expected to last approximately 3 days. This article was by Connor Gordon. This is from the Glasgow Times on the 5th of February 2025 from the news section, and the headline reads, "Man whose grandfather lost thousands in cyber attack helps others." This article was by Sandhya Suresh. An entrepreneur has launched a Glasgow-based cybersecurity service to protect over 50s from online fraud. Jordan Reid, 32, was inspired by his grandfather, Ian Gardiner, who lost thousands of pounds and his independence to a ransomware attack. Mr. Gardiner, a retired mechanical engineer and army veteran from Coatbridge, relied on his computer to write his memoirs, connect with family and store photographs. The scammers infiltrated his PC, wiping his files and leaving him anxious and disconnected in his final years. Mr. Reid said, "The computer was a huge part of his life until scammers wiped everything. The attack wasn't simply about losing data, he lost his connection to so many things, which was heartbreaking. He'd been such a confident, capable man, but the scammers really put a dent in that. When I found out, I kept thinking, how many other families are dealing with the same thing? Mr. Gardiner's story is not unique. A report from Independent Age found that scams cost older people in the UK an average of nearly £4,000 each. Another study by Age UK revealed that 1.2 million older adults lie awake at night worrying about online fraud. Determined to make a difference, Mr. Reid co-founded SendGuard, a cybersecurity subscription service tailored specifically for people aged 50 and over. SendGuard, which Mr. Reid co-founded with cybersecurity expert Grant McAdam, provides scam surveillance, account security and privacy protection in a simple and accessible way. The startup has already secured £75,000 from the Scottish Edge competition. Mr. Reid said, "I hope this will protect older adults and help families support their loved ones. This technology is my way of ensuring no one else has to go through what my grandpa did. Every time we help someone avoid becoming a victim, I think of him. His experience is at the heart of everything we do. It's not about scaring people. It's about making the internet a safer place for older generations by restoring their confidence, protecting their independence, and giving families peace of mind by providing simple tools to stay safe online." This article was by Sandhya Suresh. This is from the Glasgow Times on the 5th of February 2025 from the news section, and the headline reads, "Thug set upon man with meat cleaver in Glasgow's Easter House." This article was by Connor Gordon. A thug who struck a man on the wrist with a meat cleaver was locked up. Joseph Dow, 37, pounced on Ian Deacon in Glasgow's Easter House on March 19th, 2023. Mr. Deacon suffered a string of injuries, which included a traumatic wound to his tendons, which affects his fingers. The victim also received a break on the outer bone of his forearm. He further sustained injuries to his back and head, which were closed with staples and a stitch. Dow was found guilty at Glasgow Sheriff Court to assaulting Mr. Deacon to his severe injury, permanent disfigurement and permanent impairment. The court heard that Mr. Deacon was familiar with Dow, as he was known to ask for cigarettes outside the local shops. Prosecutor Darren Harty told jurors in his closing speech, Mr. Deacon met Dow on his way to his friend's house. Dow then set upon him with a meat cleaver. This was a man Mr. Deacon had no issue with. Mr. Deacon's partner was later informed of the attack and rushed to meet him. On the way, she encountered Dow and said, "You've just done my boyfriend." Dow replied, "It was just his hand." Mr. Deacon was taken to hospital for treatment, where he was found to have suffered a stab wound to his upper back, which was closed with 4 staples. There was also a cut to his head, which was closed with a stitch. Mr. Deacon sustained a further cut to his right wrist, which caused traumatic injuries to his finger extensors to his hand, which required surgery to repair the tendon. The hearing was told that there was a break on the outer side of a bone on his forearm. Mr. Harty stated, "The injuries are severe and will result in permanent disfigurement and permanent impairment." Dow's house was later searched and the officers recovered a kitchen knife and a meat cleaver from a bed in the living room. Sentence was deferred pending background reports until next month by Sheriff Matthew Jackson, KC, who remanded Dow in custody meantime. This article was by Connor Gorton.
That concludes this week's edition of the Glasgow Times podcast. Please remember to subscribe to our channels at Q and Review and to tell your friends about our service.